Yes, indeed. We help you reach your audience and bring your message to life. This is What It Takes Radio. And today, another edition, another episode, perhaps another adventure in interesting ideas for this Halloween. And it is Halloween. When we knock on doors, well, there are interesting stories about knocking on doors. And did you know that Halloween is actually a religious celebration? It really is about some spiritual things. And let's talk about that just for a while. Greetings once again, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad that you joined us for the Spirits of Halloween. And that's exactly what I'd like to talk about briefly, the Halloween day, October 31st. And I have kind of a stained glass little mystery background today because actually Halloween is quite a religious celebration. And in fact, there's a lot of things you can learn about Halloween if we understand that, and so that it's not just a day of merrymaking and candy giving and partying. It's a day that we can actually learn something from, that there really is some spirit lessons from Halloween. So why don't you join us? And I think you'll enjoy interesting ideas for Halloween. And that program begins right now. And here we go. Well, first of all, things are quite a mess, a muster here in the United States. Not only is it the Halloween weekend, this is the final weekend before the election for President of the United States, which takes place on Tuesday. And it's now millions of people are going to go to Halloween parties dressed as garbage bags. The uproar, the topic of the day is that former President Biden, no, to be former President Biden, still the President Biden, but obviously he's in that role of, what does he do now? Because obviously he'll be replaced by either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, probably. And we'll know who that might be on Tuesday. And of course, he made a comment in which he said, at least it was interpreted as such, that those who were supporters of Donald Trump were garbage. Well, now there are all kinds of explanations. He really didn't. But the damage has been done. And as a result, they're trying to fix it if you are in the Democratic Kamala camp. But of course, Donald Trump, in his usual ability to turn something into a TV show, is now trying to emphasize the fact that, he was a garbage man. And well, all of you who are familiar with the American world will understand that it is quite an episode, and we will see where it goes. But supposedly, we're going to see scads of Donald Trump supporters dressed up as garbage bags for their Halloween costume. So there we go. That will be a part of the scene. Well, actually, I want to go back to the title of Halloween. It's Knocking on Doors. Some lessons for and maybe from the Spirit. Well, you see, Halloween origins is a very, very significant religious festival. Now, this is a little bit of religious history, but it will be helpful for you because actually Halloween comes from the expression, Hallowed Eve, a holy evening. That's where the term comes from. Now, this is the origins of it. If you don't know, and if you do know, you just as a familiar, and it's a good thing to remember again and see where it goes with that. Is the holiday in the Christian tradition for many, many years of November 1st is All Saints' Day. And that is the day in which you remember those people who've died in the past year. You celebrate their life, you remember them. There are commemorations in many, many churches on the Sunday nearest to November 1st. There will be a lighting of candles and a public recitation and a blessing on behalf of the families and blessings on the memory of the people who've passed this year. And it was a significant day in which people would, even those who didn't go to church very often would go to church and be there. Now, part of the celebration that was planned, and this is part of what might have happened, is it was thought that because it's such a special day, is that the bad spirits, that they're not just good spirits of maybe departed people and good spirits of coming from God, but there may be demonic forces, deadly forces. And so oftentimes before the day, on that evening, they would go in and they would, try and scare the evil spirits away, and have ceremonies or rituals or, shouting or whatever would go into what it would take to banish the evil spirits out of the church. So it would be fresh and clean and pure for the next day on the Hallowed Eve next day, All Saints Day. And so that's part of the deal. We gotta scare the bad spirits. And most of the people in that world, and I would say, and perhaps even today, still believe that there are such things as evil spirits. And maybe there are. I think there's a little bit of truth to that, maybe a lot of truth to that. Good spirits and bad spirits. I do know that the world is far more than what we can just see and experience with our ordinary senses. That's right. There are transcendent realities and transcendent truths and things that are above and beyond our senses and our sensations and what we know. There are things that are unseen that are just as real as the things that are seen. Well, here's the deal. What happened was that because of that day, a gentleman named Martin Luther, the Lutheran Church, was in a quarrel with the way things were happening in the church. He thought that there were things that needed correcting. And so what he did is he wanted to challenge the establishment to change their ways. And the way he did that was that he went and knocked on a door. That's right. Just, like the children come and knock on your door and they trick or treat. Let's give us a treat, or perhaps we'll kind of be a little bad spirit and we'll do a trick. So you have your choice. Give us a treat, or you might endure the trick. So, well, Martin Luther knew that he was going to get a little bit in trouble with this idea. So he put together what we called the 95 Theses, or this is true. And it's kind of because the city of Wittenberg, Germany, where he was, there was the church, the cathedral, and it was part of a university. And Martin Luther was not only a priest, he was a teacher in some of the theology of the university. And so he was asking people, say, hey, boom, I want to debate this deal. I want to talk about it. I want to have a conversation. I want to have a debate so we can come to the truth about some things that really need to change. We need to reform things. We need to change things. We need to transform things. The status quo is not acceptable. Well, what he did is the church doors were big. You've seen the ideas, a big church door. And so what he did is he took his little document, and it was fairly lengthy. And what did he do? Well, he took a hammer and nail and he nailed it to the church door, just banged up, put it up there, knowing that lots of people would see it. And that would probably cause a bit of a ruckus, which is what he wanted. Like one of my friends, Seth Godin, who kind of matches my haircut, oftentimes uses the word. He says, good things happen when you raise a ruckus. Raise a ruckus. That's his motto. Raise a ruckus. Doesn't mean cause a riot, but, cause controversy, cause conversation, cause challenges, raise a ruckus. And he thought that that might happen. Well, what happened was that there was a brand new invention that happened was that people did come and it did raise a small little ruckus. People knew. Well, what happened was that somebody grabbed it and the new printing press, which had been just recently invented, which was a major technological change. I mean, it was transforming everything. So rather than everybody, if you wanted to have a book or an article or something where you actually had to write it out by hand and then write another one out by hand or get lots of people to write it out, you could now make a printed copy and distribute it. Now, we take that for such an obvious thing that we forget that 500 years ago, that was an incredible piece of technology, a disruptive piece of technology. And so before long, Martin Luther's his little knocking on the door statement was spreading all over Germany and eventually all over Europe. And that led to what was called the Protestant Reformation, in which the Universal Catholic Church was split into two. And part of the reason we have so many Christian denominations is because of that knocking on the door. That's where it really got its start. Now, there were people who were raising a bit of ruckus before, but that wasn't a very good thing to do. Many of them were called heretics, and punishment for heresy was to be executed. And so those things happened, but finally, the ruckus really became a bit of a revolution when Martin Luther did his deal. And so the Hallowed Eve was the predecessor because it flowed out of a kind of a dark and mysterious tradition in the church. And it led to many, many changes and led to many good things. It also led to the terrible religious wars and religious persecutions. So it was truly a mixed blessing, if that, in many cases. Well, I just point this story out to remember is when the children go and knock on the doors, uh, they're kind of living out a tradition of Martin Luther, who knocked on the door and caused some differences to take place. Well, many of you know that story, but it's always good to have, as one of my mentors always said, Stan, not everybody needs educating, but everybody needs reminding from time to time. And so I not only remember it's Halloween, and by the way, I have great memories, particularly my daughter, Amy. She's a mature woman by now, but I remember the happiness in our home. She looked forward to Halloween. I mean, she would be planning her costume and what she was going to wear for months beforehand. And the day in which we would go out on Halloween Eve was just thrilling. Unfortunately, sometimes she got so excited that she was kind of sick from excitement about Halloween. And so there are memories that make me smile about that, but to remember how our children loved that celebration and how that meant a lot to our young family. And gives me great memories of my young children who are not young anymore by any means. But I think what I would like to simply say is that remember that in many, many things of life which we take for granted, that we always have in them the opportunity to say, what needs to change? Uh, what needs to be different? What could I do that would improve things? You know, the word reformation comes from reform. What can I do that might actually help someone, help me, help other people to discover some of the things that could help to change their lives? That reformation could be a time in which I'm coming into the Thanksgiving season. I'm coming into the holiday season. This is a good time in the kind of the fourth quarter of the calendar year, though for me, of course, it's part of the new year, is to actually say, hey, maybe I should think about reforming and doing some things different. That once again, uh, I'm going to look for things that I could, treat myself to, perhaps things that I can treat others to, that I can remember that Thanksgiving is before me and gift giving is ahead of me. This might be a time to really begin uh, to once again remind ourselves that we're knocking on doors to greet people, to thank people, to remember good things, and what can we do to make life better? Just a little bit for each and every one of us. Just part of, perhaps, uh, a part of the spirit of Halloween. Well, let this sit on your heart, mind, and spirit for a while and think about it. And as you're enjoying your Halloween celebrations, or perhaps your good time with children or grandchildren, remember there's more to the story, and that the story itself is the beginning of some good things, and perhaps some good things for you too, right now in these challenging and deeply distressing times. That it's time to do some hallowed Eve things. Thank you for listening. Hope this is helpful. Reach out to me. We're here to make your life better this year. StanHouston@gmail.com. StanHouston@gmail.com. And in your life, in your business, tell me your story. And there's a good chance that perhaps I can help you. I've done it for many. I'm pretty good at it. Been doing it for so long. And it's time for you to get on the radio. That's going to change everything. Podcasting and streaming and using the modern media is going to change everything this year, no matter what business you're in. Artificial intelligence and podcasting and broadcasting are going to change your business, because right now, everyone is in the communication business. Every business is in the communication business. And that's not a trick. It's a possible treat. And it's something you'll need to know in 25. That's the deal. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll be back. Bye for now.